Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to continue our discussion on the various Enneagram types. Last week we discussed the type 1, which was the reformers, and today we're going to talk about type 2, which are the helpers. As their name suggests, they like helping people. They actually only feel like they have any worth unless they're helping people. Nothing else really gives them that much satisfaction. They can be very generous and go way out of their way to help others. They can be very compassionate towards others, very considerate of other people's feelings. For them, love and friendships and family are the most important thing. They're oftentimes the only thing. They feel very close to other people or want to feel very close to other people. On their darker side, though, they can become overly involved. They can become very overly involved in your life. They can be very clingy, very needy. Because remember, they only get any sense of self-worth by helping others. Well, if you don't want their help or you don't need their help, then they don't have a purpose, and that feels horrible to them, and so they don't like that. So be very overly involved and needy. They also be very manipulative too. They're the types, not manipulative and controlling like type 1. Type 1, if you remember, they're the types that will tell you you're a bad person, this is not the right thing to do, you're not living up to my ideals, you have to act the way I want you to, or else you're just a horrible person. Type 2s are more manipulative in the sense of like they want to change the temperature on the thermostat, but they want someone else to do it for them because they want to feel like they're needed or they're important. So, wow, isn't it really cold in here? Aren't you cold? Don't you think we should turn down the... I don't know. Maybe I need a sweater or something. They don't want to just actually say, "Hey, would you go change the thermostat?" Because they need more of a to feel needed. They can also be very transactional in their views in relationships. I did for you, so you have to do for me. I did this for you, so you have to like me now. You have to be my friend. You have to do this other thing. They don't act, then people won't love them. And again, like I said, that's a very desperate need that they have, and they can be very secretly very angry and resentful. They're the types that'll be very nice to your face, smiley and all that sort of stuff, but in reality they can't stand your guts because they feel like you aren't as appreciative of them as you should be, that sort of thing. And they'll make these little left-handed compliments, these little side digs, that sort of thing. These are the people who will give you something or do something for you without you asking, but then demand that you give them something in return, or you act in a certain way and that sort of thing. All of their gifts can have strings attached and that sort of thought. So their basic fear is being worthless, unloved, unneeded. That terrifies them. And so their basic desire is the opposite, to feel loved. But the way they feel loved is by doing things for others and having them do things for them as well. They, again, like I said, they're my practice is in working with addiction, so I tend to think in those terms. From my experience, helpers seem to fall into two categories with their substance abuse. Some abuse alcohol, much for the same reason that type 1s abuse alcohol. This constant need to feel loved and desired and always having to act and always having to be the person, just the right person who's always there for others, but never there for themselves. That's just draining and exhausting. And so for a lot of them, they will use alcohol to just sort of kind of numb out from that feeling and just sort of disappear from it. On the flip side, I can also see some of them abusing stimulants because they need that energy to keep them going and keep them always on top of their game and do for others and that sort of thing. Luckily, from my experience, most type 2s, when they abuse stimulants, we're usually talking about something like just caffeine, or something like that kind of gives them a little bit of pep and energy. But I could see some, abusing more like legal substances like Adderall or I think probably Adderall is one of the better ones, probably better example. Maybe they get into cocaine and meth, but I don't really see that as much. They're usually more of an Adderall or a caffeine experience. So again, kind of going through the different stages of a type 2, going from extreme to extreme, unhealthy, average to healthy. At the extreme level, type 2s can have borderline personality disorder. They are so overly involved in the lives of other people, wanting to be so loved and liked and that sort of thing, that they just sort of dissolve all boundaries between themselves and someone else. And what that person wants, they want. What that person likes, they like. However that person wants them to be, that's how they will be. They don't really want to have much of a personality of their own, because that would prevent them. That means they have their own wants and desires, and really extremely unhealthy type 2s, they don't want to acknowledge their own needs because they might have to address them. It's easier to always work on what somebody else wants. They can be the stalkers. Again, they desperately want this person in their life. They desperately want to be the right person for that life. They want to know all about them and that sort of thing. This is extreme level, of course. They can also be very coercive, maybe in their sexual behaviors, that sort of thing. An extreme type 2 is the type of person who would say, hey, I bought you a really nice dinner, don't you think you should sleep with me? Don't you think you owe me something? That's kind of extreme transactional viewpoint. So from a writing standpoint, type 2s can make very interesting villains, because they're not necessarily evil for evil's sake, and that can be kind of an interesting twist on a villain, that they can be very manipulative and controlling and insidious in someone else's life, but you could almost just as easily say, well, but they're really a nice guy and they're sort of trying to help others, or she just really wants to have a friend and that sort of thing. In the meantime, she's, destroying the lives of people around her and that sort of thing. So it can make very interesting villains for extremes. At the unhealthy level, which luckily is where as bad as most people get. Most people don't get to the extreme. They can be. They're the ones who play the victim a lot. They're the types who, if they are an alcoholic, they will always play the victim of how they can't help themselves and how they need someone else to do this for them, and they need someone else to help them for that and that sort of thing. And an alcoholic type 2 who finds an enabling type 2, that's an unholy combination right there, because the unhealthy type 2 who's enabling that person will just kind of keep feeding into the victimization, the sort of self-victimization of the addict, and so they never get better, and that type 2 never gets out of that situation, and it just can be really, really ugly. They can also play the martyr. They're the types that will go above and beyond when nobody asked them to, and then expect everybody to sort of bow down, kiss their ass because they did this great thing, and everybody's like, that we didn't really want you to do that. No one asked you to do that. In fact, it probably wasn't even that helpful. Probably something nobody even wanted you to do, that sort of thing. But they will use that sort of martyrdom to justify whatever their behaviors are and that sort of thing. They can also be kind of in that sort of the means justify the ends, except it's a little different. With type 1s, with the reformers, the means justify the ends in the sense that to achieve their higher ideal, to achieve their higher goal, that sort of thing. Whereas with type 2s, it's usually much more personal. Yes, I killed your ex-boyfriend for you, but he was so mean to you. Why are you calling the police? I don't understand. I helped you, that sort of thing. That's maybe a little more extreme example, but still, you kind of get the idea. It's a little more personal with them. They will use their martyrdom to justify whatever horrible actions they might do. At the average level, though, what most people with type 2 personality types have is they are afraid that people don't want them around, and they have to earn their love. And so these folks, they can be rather sad individuals in themselves, in the sense that they always feel like they have to do something for other people in order to be loved, in order to earn that love, because deep down inside they're really afraid people don't like them and don't want them around. And the only way they can be assuaged to that is by constantly doing things for other people. These are the folks who are very likely taken advantage of by others. Once someone realizes, hey, all I gotta do is ask Susan, she'll do it. Doesn't matter what, she'll run out there and do whatever I want, because I know she'll do it. They're the types that will overcommit. Sometimes the super busy mother, is the type who she's a type 2 and she wants what's best for her kids. And to do that means she has to be involved in their PTA and their Boy Scouts and their Girl Scouts and take them to karate and all this other stuff because she wants to make sure that she's a good mother, that they're going to love her, and by that sense, we're going to do everything for her. This is also the guy who spends a lot of money trying to basically buy people to like them. And it's not so much of manipulating and controlling. That's a little more like a type 3, which we're going to talk about next time. But this is more like, hey, if I buy them nice things, then they will like me. And in reality, sometimes they do, but most often they like the nice things they give them. They don't really care that much about the person. So type 3, average type 2s can be easily manipulated and that sort of thing. They can be very, they can be the yes man as well at work. They can be the types who will use a lot of flattery and kiss people's ass because they're hoping that will buy them, love and affection. It's not necessarily that they want the big promotion. That can be more like a type 3 kind of thing. It's more that they genuinely want this person to like them. And so if I just heap praise on them, then they will like me better than everybody else. At the healthy level, though, these can be amazing people. Healthy type 2s make the best counselors because they want to help others. They understand there's this boundary between what other people need and what they can actually provide. They also understand that it is good to do good things, to do nice things, because it makes you feel good, and they let go of the expectations that this is actually going to buy them anything, buy them the love and affection of anyone else. They can be very joyous, they can be very gracious, they can be very humble. They generally want to help others, generally want to see other people succeed, and are willing to help them achieve those goals, but they don't necessarily feel the need to do it at their own expense, and they also know that they're not necessarily going to get a direct one-to-one benefit. This is the person who will loan you money just because you said you need it, and they honestly don't expect you to pay it back, or they'll whenever you can pay it back and that sort of thing, because they really just want to help others. So for examples, one is like Eleanor Roosevelt. She spent a lot of her life working to try and better the world and help the poor. You can almost argue that I think it's Sergeant Shriver of the Kennedy family. Well, he's not Kennedy's, but he married into the Kennedy family. Very wealthy family, very powerful family, but was very influential in helping a lot of the poor people. And even though they were wealthy themselves, I don't know if they were ever poor, they still spent a lot of their time trying to help the poor. One of the other examples was Richard Simmons. Not sure how many people know who Richard Simmons is anymore, but he was an exercise guru back in the, I think, late 70s, early 80s. He was popular when I was a kid. But he genuinely is always trying to help people, make them feel good about themselves. And he was one of the first people that I can think of who was very much against sort of like, fat shaming and that sort of thing. He's very big on anything you can do to make yourself better, to make yourself, make your life better is a good thing and that sort of thing. Dolly Parton kind of falls in this category. She's a singer. She's also born-again Christian, but has been very genuinely interested in helping others, helping the poor, giving back to the community, that sort of thing, kind of living up to those Christian ideals, so to speak. From a fictional standpoint, actually, the character from my first book, Saga of the Scout, the main character is Ethan, and when I wrote him, I had in mind that he was a type 2. And when I wrote him, he was, I think he's really more of an average type 2, working his way towards being a healthy type 2. I think he's probably still average, at least how I conceive of him. He still has his flaws. He still feels like he has to act in the world in order to help others. Dr. McCoy from Star Trek, he's also a type 2. There's a few episodes where he will get himself into trouble because he wants to help others. He believes that as a doctor it's his job to heal others and to take care of others. Star Trek has a habit of doing that with their doctors, that they all trying to kind of follow that Hippocratic oath. They don't want to kill people. They are more interested in helping people, even like the enemy, someone who maybe they shouldn't be trying to help. Maybe it's not really the most practical thing. They don't care. Their job is to help others, and so that's what they want to do. And then Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. He's a helper. He's probably like the prototypical helper because he helps Frodo from start to finish to get to Mordor and destroy the ring, and he has no interest in any kind of fame or glory. He's not interested in, he doesn't want the ring for his own power, for his own gain, or anything else like that. He just wants to help Frodo all along. And so type 2s, from a character development, can be very interesting. Like I talked about, they can be interesting villains, very insidious villains, but they also make great heroes because they want to help people, and so they're always doing things to help people, and that's kind of how you drive a plot along as well. You can also have that inner conflict of feeling unworthy and having to work towards it and discovering that they are actually worthy all along. And then helpers also work well as sidekicks because they're helpers. And so you can have a protagonist that's another type and then have their friend be a helper who basically wants to help their friend along, like Samwise Gamgee. So helpers are very interesting character types. I see a lot of them in my office, but I also see a lot of them because I'm a counselor. And go figure, most counselors are type 2s. I am not a type 2. My type will come later. I'll tell you what my type is later. But anyway, I hope that was helpful, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.